Every single passage, the tithe can only ever be food produced in God's holy land. If you lived outside, tithe can only ever be food produced in God's holy land. If you lived outside the land of Israel, you were not required to tithe. If you were not a farmer, you were not required to tithe. If you were a fisherman, you didn't have to tithe. If you're a merchant, you didn't have to tithe. If you're a blacksmith, you didn't have to tithe. And if you're a carpenter like Jesus, you didn't have to tithe. Most of Jesus' disciples did not have to tithe, and Jesus himself did not pay a tithe, because tithing could only ever be food from God's holy land.
Now we know he's saying a pagan name, but everything else he's saying is right besides the pagan name.
People try to argue that the reason why food is required is because money was not used. This is incorrect. The word money is used 32 times in the book of Genesis alone. So the idea that people had a barter system and didn't use money is incorrect. Now, some people try to argue that Abraham tithed from his income. This is incorrect. Abraham never tithed from his income. He tithed once from the spoils of war, and the other 90% went to the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah. In addition to that, he was not called Abraham at that time because he had not yet been justified by faith. He was called Abram. And at this point, I really want to challenge you. If you believe in tithing, show me one verse in the Bible that says that everybody must pay 10% of their income. Now, some people try to go in Malachi chapter 3, it says that if you don't tithe, you're robbing me. And then it says to test God by tithing to see whether God would pour out his blessings upon you. But what's important about this passage, and it turns the whole thing on its head, is that Malachi was not actually speaking to the people. He was speaking to the priests who were taking more than their fair share of the tithes. Let me prove that to you. If you go to Malachi chapter 2, verse 1 says, "And now, O ye priests," and he begins to address the priests, and he begins to speak against their sins, all the way to chapter 3, and then it says, "Will a man rob God? Yet ye have robbed me." But you say, wherein have we robbed you? In tithes and offerings. Listen to this. This is a situation more akin to Benny Hinn, Creflo Dollar, Joyce Meyer, and all these big prosperity preachers, and perhaps even your local pastor, taking tithes and offerings that were not intended for him and getting rich out of them. This is what Malachi is addressing. He's not addressing the people, he's addressing the priests. So it says in verse 10, "Bring ye all the tithes into the storehouse." Now when it says storehouse here, it's referring to the Levitical cities which contained storehouses, and the tithes were brought into the Levitical cities for the Levites. But not all Levites were priests. Moreover, 4,000 were porters, and 4,000 praised the Lord with the instruments which I made, said David, to praise therewith. The Levites were not just priests, but they had a whole array of activity. It's not just for the priests, it's for greater things than this. And there are other passages that talk about the tithe being used for the poor and the needy and the orphan and for the widow. And what's interesting here is these priests were keeping it all for themselves instead of giving it to the people that deserved it. But nonetheless, in the New Testament, we are not taught tithing. This is something specific for the Israelites living in the land of Israel. There's no text anywhere that says that all the Israelites tithe, only the farmers. And there's no text anywhere that says that all people for all time must give 10% to the Lord. There's nothing that says that.
Shalom to all the viewers out there tuning in. Today we have another imperative message. And if it be the Most High's will, he may open up your eyes, ears, and your spirit that you may receive the information that's getting ready to be brought forth. The information that's getting ready to be brought forth is something that 99% of the Christian pastors did not want you to ever find out. All the top echelon in the Christian organization never wanted you to get hold of this information regarding tithes. They never wanted you to get a hold of this information, and they're preying off your ignorance. The tithing deception and what the Christian church deems as tithes is the biggest fraudulent activity that's being committed right now. The Christian church has turned into a multi-billion-dollar industry off of the ignorance of the masses. That's essentially what has happened through the tithing lie. So what you're going to find out in this video is what tithing actually is according to the Bible, and it's going to find out it has nothing to do with money. 2, you're going to find out who the tithe was actually for, not the Christian pastor, and you're going to find out what the tithe was for. And it's not for setting up European white supremacy Christian organizations in people of color's neighborhood. I said it, let me say it again. It's not for setting up more Christian organizations pushing a white supremacy doctrine on people of color. teaching them about a white God and a white Jesus and white angels, and everyone in the whole entire Bible is white, because that's essentially what the Christian doctrine subliminally does. Yes, they do on all the movies. It has nothing to do with being racism, being racist. That's just what it is. So I'm going to point it out. That's just what it is. This ain't the Christian church. I'm not bound by trying to caress anyone's feelings. I'm going to say it how it is. It has nothing to do with racism at all. So that's what you're going to find out in this message. I'm Brother Yerashko. This is the Bible Unlocked, the tithing deception. Revelation 12 verse 9. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. You're going to find out that Satan is at it again. Yes, Satan has his hand in the cookie jar. Satan is responsible for deceiving the entire world via the Christian church. That's the primary channel that he's using to deceive the whole world. And guess what? You that's funding and tithing to the Christian church, you're the one responsible for funding this prophecy to come to pass via your tithing money, so-called tithing money, because tithing in the Bible is not money. It's nothing monetary. You're the one responsible for doing this. So you can give yourself a round of applause, those good old Christians out there that have funded Satan's agenda. And it says Satan deceived the entire world. The Christian church, I say this every single deception video, the Christian church is still looking for this guy to come. You're still looking for this major deception to come when it's talking about you. Starting with the Roman Catholic Church in the 3rd century all the way to today. All the way till today. That's the deception that it's talking about. So you're going to be looking a long time for some other deception to come, when the deception is already here. It's fulfilled right there. Here's an analogy. It's like someone who, say you have a pair of glasses and you can't find these glasses. You're looking all over the place for these glasses. You're looking all on the couch. You're looking on top of the refrigerator. I mean, you're looking at all type of places to find out where these glasses are at. You're looking in all the most difficult places to see if you place those glasses there. All of that work you've done just to come into the bathroom and look in the mirror and find out the glasses right on top of your head. It's the same thing with the Christian church. You're looking all over the place for Satan. You're looking in the most difficult places to try to find Satan. When all you need to do is go into the Christian church on your little Sunday that you go worship on, and you're going to find Satan right there, staring right at you every Sunday, laughing, giggling, joking all in your face. That's where he's at right there. You don't need to look hard to find Satan. That's according to the Bible. What biblical tithing is before Satan came via the Christian church and deceived the entire world. Leviticus 27 verse 30. And all the tithe of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's. It is holy unto the Lord. So the tithe, according to the Bible, is of the seed of the land and the fruit of the trees. You're going to find out that tithing in the Bible is only food. It's only going to be dealing with foods. The tithe of the seed and the tithe of the fruit. This is the first understanding on what tithing is. There's more. Let's get some more. And if a man will at all redeem aught of his tithes, he shall add thereto the 5th part thereof. And concerning the tithe of the herd or of the flock, even of whatsoever passeth under the rod, the 10th shall be holy unto the Lord. So a 10th part of the herd and the flock. This is the meat. The first one that we talked about, the fruits and the seed of the ground, that's dealing with the vegetables. Now it's the herd and the flock. Now it's dealing with the meat. Tithing is food according to the Bible. All throughout the scriptures, what we're going to find out in this message, that is going to have nothing to do with money. All of it has to do with food. So now we have the tithe of the fruits and vegetables and of the meats now. Now you give a 10% of that. Let's go precept upon precept like the Bible commands us to do. And let's get a more well-documented explanation on what tithing is. Deuteronomy 14 verse 22. Thou shalt truly tithe all the increase of thy seed that the field bringeth forth year by year. This is exactly what we just read. Now in Deuteronomy is giving you another count. All the increase that the field bring forth year by year. This is talking about food, not money. And thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose to place his name. And you're supposed to take that food, you can't do this with money, and eat in the place that the Most High has chosen. Now the Christian church, they're slick. They're trying to tell you, well, God chose the Christian church right up the street. No, let's find out, according to the Bible, what is the place, or where is the place that the Most High chose to place his name? 2 Chronicles 6 verse 6. But I have chosen Jerusalem that my name might be there, and have chosen David to be over my people Israel. So the Most High chose Jerusalem, which is in the land of Israel, not your local neighborhood Christian church. He chose Jerusalem to place his name there. So what the instructions thus far in this first set of tithing is to take the increase of the land, and it's referring to the flocks as well. And you're supposed to take it to where the place where the Most High has chose to place his name. So you take those tithes, 10% of your increase, and you bring it to Jerusalem. This is tithing according to the Bible. Then you take it and bring it to Jerusalem. The tithe of corn, of the wine, and of thine oil, and of the firstlings of thy herds, and of thy flocks, that thou mayest learn to fear the Lord thy God always. This didn't have anything to do with Benjamin Franklin, George Washington, or anybody else, or any other monetary system. You take the wine, the corn, the herd, you bring all that to Jerusalem, and that's where you're supposed to eat and enjoy the tithe. And if the way be too long for thee, so that thou art not able to carry it, or if the place be too far from thee, which the Lord thy God shall choose to set his name there. So there's a dilemma. So if there's a dilemma that arises, and you have too much of the tithe, say you have like 1,000, your 10% for the year was like 1,000 sheep, 1,000 oxen. You just got too much. You got 100 pounds of tomatoes. You got too much increase to bring to the place where the Most High chose, Jerusalem. Or if it's too far, say you're somewhere else on a long journey and it's just too far for you to bring all this food to Jerusalem. That's what this is going into. Here's the instructions that you're supposed to do. When the Lord thy God have blessed thee, then shalt thou turn it into money. Then you take all the increase of the flocks, of the fruit, and of the vegetables. You take all the increase because it was too much for you to bring up there. Maybe you didn't have enough camels to support the trip. It's too much of it. So now you take it and put it in and turn it into money. This is the only time you're going to hear about money and tithing together in the same subject. This is it. You're gonna take the increase, you're gonna bind it and turn it into money, but you're gonna sell all your stuff and you're gonna exchange it for money. Now watch this. And bind up the money in thine hand, and shalt go unto the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. Then you take that money that you just exchanged for your goods, you take it and then you make the trip to Jerusalem. Let's find out for what. And thou shalt bestow that money for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. Then you're supposed to bestow that money, meaning you're going to exchange it again for whatsoever thy soul lusteth after. And the whatsoever, it's about to explain what that's talking about. The whatsoever is about to explain it right now. For oxen, for sheep, or for wine, or for strong drink, or for whatsoever thy soul desires. The whatsoever thy soul lusteth after was referring to the tithe. The food, the herbs, the vegetables, the fruits. That's what it was referring to. It ain't talking about anything you want to buy. It ain't telling you to go out and whatsoever, I want to go out and buy a prostitute or weed and crack. It ain't talking about that. It's talking about whatsoever of the tithe, the oxen, the fruits, the vegetables, the oil, the corn, and thou shalt eat before the Lord thy God, and thou shalt rejoice, thou and thine household. And you're supposed to get that food that you have just purchased with your money, and you're supposed to eat that tithe with you and your household. Letting you know that one of the tithes is for you. That's what one of the tithes is for. One of the tithes of the increase of your land you're supposed to enjoy. You and your family is supposed to get.
In other words, the money that you got from selling something that you couldn't take to the place, you're supposed to buy shit with it, and then you eat up all that shit. So that portion was meant for you. And the pastors told you, pass that offering plate, huh?
That offering in that church, and then you go home and you do what we're supposed to do.
People come to church week after week. Listen, if you have perfect faith about your, if you have great faith about your giving, you don't every Friday or Saturday you don't say, oh well, now what am I going to do? No.
Read. It's going to show you.
What is my reward then?
What is my reward then?
Verily, that when I preach the gospel,
When I preach the gospel,
I make the gospel of Christ without charge.
and they say you're not supposed to charge based on this scripture. Read.
That I abuse not my power in the gospel.
That I abuse not my power in the gospel. So I'm going to ask you all a question, and I'm going to answer it. I don't need you to answer it. I'm going to answer it.
Your creator, honor him. Do you have to tithe to go to heaven? No. But if you want to prosper, you want to honor God in your life as a Christian, you have to be a person who tithes. You don't have.
It'll take me a lot more than the little time we have to discuss this. But he's laid a claim to it. He says it belongs to him. Simply put.
Tithing. All right. I'm a 28-year-old brother residing in Delaware, where I watch the Truth of God program every Sunday.
Wonderful.
What does your church say about tithing? Please continue to fight the religious fight. God bless you.
What the book says about tithing, the mistake that many preachers have made, they narrow tithing down to money.
That's right.
Tithing is more than money.
That's right.
Tithing is also not just money, but it's also with land and possession.
In Leviticus chapter 27,
Listen.
and at verse 30,
What is it?
and all the tithe of the land.
Oh, do you hear that?
Amen.
My God, if you own land or own a farm, you got 10 acres, one of those acres is belong to God.
That's right.
If you got 20 acres, 2 of those acres belong to God. You got 30 acres, 3 of those acres belong to God. If you got 100 acres, 10 acres belong to God.
That's right.
Huh?
That's right.
Listen.
And all the tithe of the land,
All the tithe of the land.
whether of the seed of the land.
Well, that's how this telecast keep moving. Tithing and offering was keep this stuff pumping all over the world.
That's right.
So besides sending your money to these false prophets and telling you a lie, you need to send it to the truth of God.
That's right.
Amen.
You got all that much money to give away, give it to the truth of God.
Amen.
That way we can get on satellite and on TBN and BET and
That's right.
blast them back to hell.
That's right.